Welcome to HCA Talks Health. I'm Zina LaRue, and our guest for today is Jodi Duval. So Jodi is a naturopathic physician with more than 15 years experience, and she's also the founder of Revital Health. So a very warm welcome to the show, Jodi. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Zina. Pleasure to be here.
Today's theme is why women are undernourished, and we're going to unpack the reasons behind nutritional deficiencies, specifically for women, and how to address them. But before we dive into that, I just want to get a little bit of an idea, Jodi. So, starting with your own journey, what led you to be interested in this topic?
So yeah, it's a big one and it's a goodie. So a lot of my clients to begin with, as from a client perspective first, not even from a personal perspective, have come to me over the years with very similar needs and requirements. So I've been able to, narrow down recommendations, but also see so many patterns across all of them. And it doesn't really matter on the age, and I can discuss into detail around this. We're seeing very similar complaints. So from that, I realized, particularly around women, there's so many aspects to being nourished properly. And for myself, having had children, running a business, being very busy, really needing to have a whole lot of support and a team as well around me to really give me my ability to be acting at my best. So I have been interested in women's health for ever since I started in this practice, but it's just that we need it really so much, and we give so much to so many areas of our lives, and we are really super women. So I just feel that I needed to be an advocate for this space as well.
Absolutely. So what do you mean by undernourished? I guess it's not the same as underfed, right?
No, very, very different. And so there's sort of two aspects to this. Undernourished is, the obvious, where, most women, and I sort of relay this to women with children, and especially in the early days when they're, postnatal, when we're really seeing deficiencies set in from the pregnancy, from now sleep deprived, from now not being able to nourish themselves and have time for food, really giving them all to their baby or babies, and even having other children around at the same time. So really that is that nutritional aspect of being undernourished. And there is so much in relation to the emotional nourishment and energy nourishment as well. So it's really that, we are overstretched, we are depleted in so many different ways. We lose our sense of ourselves in this process, and even through timings where we're actually moving through different parts of our cycle and feeling really like we are not appreciated, even in a corporate environment. And I do see a lot of women coming through saying, look, what's wrong with me? I can't concentrate sometimes, and then I'm having to do the same role as everyone else, or I'm having to move through pain through my period, or I've got hormonal fluctuations, and then there's certain hormonal times that we're dealing with. So it's not only a nutritional undernourished, but it's also an emotional and capacity undernourished. So we're really seeing both sides of it here, and hence why it needs to be looked at for treatment as such in both areas as well.
So do you find that it's more relevant to women than men, mostly because of the fact that women get children and because of our cycles, or anything else that you feel like why it's more relevant to women?
It's, and there's also research around this. There's a lot of research around this actually. So, iron, vitamin D requirements, yes, because of pregnancy, because of periods, because of certain cycles, but also our brains they work differently. And I saw a recent study on why women need more sleep. And it's because our brains can have a higher capacity. We need to be thinking of so many different things. And any mum or any worker or any corporate, we can multitask. Not that multitasking is always the most efficient way, but we're able to do that. So the energy demands and the needs and requirements for us to be having these optimal nutrition states is so important. So vitamin D as well, we need all these pro-hormone aspects and production of and clearance of So yeah, there is so many areas that we need to look at and why we are different, but also validity in research is poor. We are not researched very well because of the fact that we are so volatile, as a lot of people say. We can't have a steady, stable, variable state. So it's a little bit tricky for the research as well. So therefore, the validity of what we are dealing with and seeing in women is not very good. Yeah.
Okay. So if someone's listening today and they are presenting with some symptoms, but they're not sure whether it might be related to a deficiency, how would they know? What would the typical symptoms be that they might be experiencing?
Yeah, and it's varied, as you can well know. We can see depression, mood changes. We can see tiredness. We can see high need to sleep or poor sleep. We can see even requiring more ice, for iron, particularly as we wanting more cold drinks. We're seeing bags under the eyes, immune system being all over the place. So AWOL immune system, as I call it. So a lot of the intolerances and allergies will come out of this as well. And we see this at particular times of the hormonal cycle as well. So we're also seeing, sore legs or bruises. We're seeing inability to cope in general, getting overwhelmed very, very easily. So the symptoms can be so wide and vast. They can also be that we're craving so many different things. So, a lot of my clients will come in and they'll say, look, I'm craving sugar again. I'm like, well, have you been eating? And they're like, oh, actually, have I been eating? Like, see, your body is actually just looking for the easiest source of quick grab energy, and that's why you're craving sugar. Yes, there can be yeast or candida implications around that as well. So bacteria and our microbiome can have a big impact on what we crave and what we want. But most of the time with women, we're actually not prioritizing our own nutrition at the times that we need and at steady parts of the cycle. So women particularly tend to undereat and over exercise and have a wide variety of guilt factors. And media and social structures don't help with that. And this is where that pressure of the undernourished women really, really is key, is that we are showing to be or expected to be in so many different areas superstars, yet given no grace for the times that we can't because of hormonal implications or other deficiency states as well. Yeah.
So you've mentioned quite a bit on the differences in how we feel and our capacity and all of those things when going through our cycle. So how does it differ? Maybe you can just in just a short summary of maybe the first phase of the menstrual cycle compared to the second. How might you feel different? Some women might not even be aware of this.
Yeah, and it's common. I had a client this morning tell me, she's like, I wish I learned this in high school, not when I was 44. And I was like, yes, I know. Get me on my soapbox any day. I will talk about this.
Yes.
So yes, and I love certain resources like Alyssa Vitti. She talks about this, and she talks about the fact that we have these different stages and superpowers between each part of our cycle. But how I normally explain it is obviously we have our bleed, we have our menstrual bleed, and day one is the first day of our menstrual bleed. So when the blood is coming through, there's various signs and symptoms for health in this particular time of the bleed as well. So the pain, the bloating, the type of the blood that's coming through, the color, the clotting, the stops, the starts. So it all gives us, from a naturopathic perspective and health perspective, really key clues to this. So naturally we'll be inverted. We'll really want to be in our little cave. We'll want to, knuckle down and maybe get some things completed at a low energy state. And we'll need a lot more nourishment in these times, warm drinks, collagen, iron-rich foods. And then as we come out of that bleed stage, we really go into our sort of best time of our cycle. So the follicular phase is like the power stage. We'll need, we can exercise so much. We'll have power, we'll have energy, we'll have, really high capacity when it comes to a lot of different things. Even with estrogen, flourishing in the brain, testosterone flourishing, we can achieve a lot. And so generally we can actually eat a little bit less around this time, and it doesn't make a huge impact. So high exercise and low eating, that seems like a pretty cool thing for a lot of women. But then when we flip into the second half of the cycle, then that's when it becomes challenging because we expect it to be the same. So moving through into ovulation, we have, we feel good. Our skin's glowing. We want to take lots of pictures of ourselves. We want to the videos, so it's that confidence, that social, that's when we plan social events, that we plan, workshops or podcasts or wherever we're speaking, because we have the high capacity of not only the hormones, but we're feeling really good within ourselves. So that is sort of like the key clues. And then moving into the luteal phase, which is sort of the second half of the cycle, as we call it. So it's from like, day 15 in a normal typical cycle, which we know we're not model women, but it can be around those times, and you'll see this temperature shift and change quite quickly if you're measuring on an Aura or a Whoop or another temperature device. So you'll see a dip and then a rise, and then after that rise is when we move into that luteal phase. So in that luteal phase, we have a higher temperature, high metabolic rate, but we do have a lower energy. So we have progesterone coming in at a higher rate here. So we will need to be doing more softer work. We'll need to do yoga and gentle Pilates and eat lots. So it's the opposite. We feel like, well, now I'm doing less, but I'm eating more. Hold on a second. So if the body is feeling unsafe at this time, that's when we can hold on to weight, because we're preparing. We're thinking that we're preparing for something, a baby, to nourish. So the body will hold very, very naturally around this time. So it's important that we eat and create safety for the body. And so at this time, moods can change depending on how the body is detoxing hormones and dealing with the hormones. We can feel some mood changes. We can feel some PMS or some pain. And then then because of the high metabolic rate, your sleep also might change a little bit, and you'll notice that coming into the next period. So there is a lot there, but it gives you sort of dips and dives of knowing where it's at. And a lot of women find it useful to tell employers, and it's becoming a little bit more acceptable to mention our cycles. It was so taboo before, and like, hush, hush, like we don't mention anything about bleeding or hormones. But now women are becoming more empowered around their cycles, and for due reason. And it's about time, because now we can get better out of ourselves, and our employees or people around us will understand what we're going through as well, and get the best out of us as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So just having that self-awareness and knowing what's going on, compared to one day you're feeling horrible and you have no idea why, but having that education, like one of your clients said, could really make a huge difference. So what are some of the things that we can do about this? So getting back to the undernourished and maybe looking specifically at the second phase, the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle, you're saying that we should eat more. So how do we know that we're getting enough? Do you have a specific amounts of protein and carbs, or is it do you have general guidelines? How do we know?
Yeah, and it is tricky, and I think this is where self-awareness comes in. And so to your point before, it's really good to teach women, because it can change on the demand. And so I teach demand and requirement. So depending on through the life cycle as well, this will change. Puberty will bring out a different nutritional need and requirement to, for pregnancies and fertility reasons, and then in through perimenopause and menopause. So yes, the key measurements here is just really the cravings, the need, the demand, and gym. So again, it's knowing what you're doing in your day. Are you sitting down? Do you need lots of brain power? Do you need more, carbohydrates? Are you sleeping well? Are you working out at the gym? Do you need more protein? But the general rule of thumb is that we need a really balanced meal. Like, we need protein. We always are requiring a certain amount of protein for women, depending on weight and individuality. Carbohydrates we can't be scared of, but it's the quality of the food, making sure it's not too laced with chemical load, and making sure that, we're looking after our body's detoxification areas by having the cup half empty. And also making sure that we've got a really good, decent amount of fiber. And fiber is totally under talked about recently. Well, not recently, but overall, 30 grams is a lot to get. And we do need fiber. It clears, it cleans, it supports, and it helps our microbiome for so many different purposes. So antioxidants, fresh food, vitality foods, so it's really, I've dealt and even spoken to on my own podcast to a lot of leaders in the space of eating disorders, and it's a very again, taboo but under talked about subject, because more than likely 1 in every 5 women that I get in my office will have had some sort of eating disorder issues. So I'm very clear and very specific on how I speak to my clients, particularly my women and men. I will say this is not just women, um, around how to monitor food and needs and demands, because we can't always think in lack or in punishment. So it's
Mm,
about swapping out foods and knowing that if you have a treat, great. We know we need to live our life. We need to have joy. We need to experience different things. And the palate is one of those ways of experiencing things. So I'm very specific on not putting words. Words are powerful in a health space, in a health office.
mm,
We have to be very careful with our words.
mm,
So yeah, that's one thing that I really am careful about. So I never give too many recommendations about specific meal plans, because it will change, as we've said, throughout the cycle even, but also for years and demands of the day.
mm. So, and as if I understand you correctly, it's really not just about the nutrition. It's so much more. So when specifically when you're supporting your clients, what are some of the other strategies for improvement? So it's not just like you said, the nutrition. There's so much more going on for someone. We need to look at the bigger picture, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a connection, we don't take away the fact that everything is related. There's a matrix of things. So however they've been brought up and conditioned around food is a really important discussion to have, because we can have a perception on food that's not quite healthy. And it's good to discover that early on to then know how to word that with your clients. So what I normally specifically look at is, yes, any emotional tendencies towards food. Key things is to not shame anything that they're doing. I had a client who said, I can't show you my diary or my food because I'm so ashamed of how I eat. And I said, I will not judge you. This is something that we're doing together. This is something that I'm looking at. And when she eventually did, it wasn't that bad, but we always have this perception in our
Mm,
minds. So
mm,
it's complete non-judgmental, and it's just for me to know. So I ideally just get them to take photos of each meal. So are they eating enough? And then once we go through that, then we put in what are we swapping out? Why wouldn't this be an ideal component of the meal? Can we put something else in there that's more nourishing, more super, nutrient dense? So it's really just analyzing and giving them empowerment over what their meal choices could be, and not shaming or giving them any sort of bad feedback. And most of the time, even with weight and weight management, it's more about creating safety. It's creating and resetting the set points. So
mm.
very important things for us to be making sure that we're looking at for our clients, for sure.
So when you're saying resetting the set points, so the weight set points, because I mean it's so easy to maybe lose a little bit of weight and then your body wants to restore balance. Even when you gain, there's leptin, there's ghrelin, there's all of these different hormones in the body trying to restore that balance every single time. So how do you restore that or reset the set point? What are some of the strategies that you use to do that?
Mm. So timing is also, telling clients that this will take time. It's not a miracle cure. There's no magic pill. There's no magic thing that we can sort of like wave our wand at. So it will take time, and we know that these certain timelines will be in place. As an example, we've got 3 months or 3 to 4 months of red blood cell regeneration. So for a complete nutrient picture, so when we're looking at metabolites and measuring nutrients within the body, it's going to be 3 to 4 months before you see a complete change, because of the fact that it takes 3 to 4 months for the red blood cells. So we're working with that. We're working with microbiome changes. So it's education around these for my women, to know that those microbiome changes, although they turn over quite quickly, it will take time to get that habit tree right. Hormones come into it, and we talk about appetite as well, ghrelin, leptin, knowing where the body's safety point is, and knowing that willpower just a little bit is required in some cases to come over cravings and requirements and needs. So it's about talking about each point of these and giving empowerment around that. The other things I do is I get them to do, sort of mood and food diaries. What was I feeling before I started to eat this food? Was it required? Did I really need that? If I needed it and I really wanted a cookie, then brilliant. What stage of the cycle were you at?
Yeah.
Normally right before, and I needed more carbs. Have you eaten enough that day? Why did you feel like that cookie?
Yeah.
So it's not shaming in that way, but it's about observation and awareness. So they're actually learning these cues. So it's retraining The set point is sort of, like, yes, you need it to be at a certain weight to maintain that set point for a period of time. So again, it's maintaining that, willpower, changing the health and supporting. But I also noticed that inputting the correct nutrients, if there was a deficiency, really helps them have and sustain willpower. And that's one thing, even with children, I noticed that as soon as we put a nutritional deficiency support in, depending on what they're needing, they're like, well, I didn't crave that food at all. Or the immune system then resets and there's less inflammation. So there is less input or less changes within the body as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and I say there's sort of like not key things. I know it sounds complex, but it's an individualized approach. And that's the only way you can really get substantial, long-lasting change.
I think it's very important to get all the nutrients that we need, because we can so easily, as we've been discussing, become nutritionally starved. And if we're nutritionally starved, the body will keep on craving and keep on asking for food, even though you're getting more than enough calories into the system. So that's exactly it. If we put the good quality foods back, then in itself, it could make a huge difference. But what you mentioned earlier, and I think this is so important, is we need to find a way of eating that is sustainable, eating and living, right? Because otherwise you're not going to be able to sustain it in terms of your weight, in terms of enjoying life, all of these things. We need to take all of these things into consideration. So sustainability really is key. So if someone's listening today and they feel like, ooh, I want to go on a journey with Jodi, what would that look like? So you mentioned it's a bit a longer journey that they go on, maybe 3-month, 4-month journey, or what does it look like typically?
Yeah, so again, it's depending on what each client's circumstance is. And I must say that with a caveat, because some clients come in and they're like, I want to do everything. I want to do health optimization. I want to know everything about my body. And so that does come with testing, and it does cost, because we can't get these under Medicare or, wherever you are in the world, there's not sort of anything that gives medical benefit for these sorts of tests or functional tests. So yes, it depends on where you're at. But ideally, a client would do testing with me, and we would look at all the different components. So we do a organic acids test, we do CoQ10, we do oxidative stress, we do microbiome mapping, we do a general blood, so very comprehensive bloods, iron, thyroid. We look at hair analysis for toxic metals and minerals. We look at a whole range of different apparent bloods, and even DNA if we need to. So anything out of the ordinary GP's office, we normally ask for in this. Intolerance testing is something that I really love to do as well. It gives a set amount of foods that we need to remove for normally a 3 to 4 month period, because we have those attachments on the immune system. And while that is happening, we do gut healing. So the normal journey looks like that. There's a complete interpretation that happens, and a very comprehensive analysis in the consultation. So here, I'm adjusting and learning to the client, and we're seeing different habitry and different needs and requirements, different emotional clearance and things that are supporting or needing to be changed for the client. And therefore, from here, I also give referrals. So it's a team that sometimes it takes, a pelvic floor specialist, or a counsellor, or a psychologist, or a kinesiologist. So there can be so many different things that will come a part of that. I always joke to my clients that I never leave any stone unturned, because I want to know the matrix of the client. So I make sure I've got everything. Have you had your pap smears? What are we looking at for breast scans? What are all these components to your health, and have you got them covered? So that's that. And that's normally, I'll sometimes see a client then 3 weeks later. We check on things. We do some compounding and some medicines, do a lot of herbal medicine compounding and nutritional compounding here, and whatever other medicines that we are requiring. I use methylene blue and CBD. And so there's so many different nuances and toolkits that we can go to. And then, ideally I see a client once a month. And then it will be at that 3 to 4 month period. I hope I don't have to see them for another 3 months, that we've done our work, that we do our stabilization. We make sure they're empowered, they've got the knowledge, and then they use me for acute requirements. So I'm sick, or I've got a flu, or I've got a UTI. How can I help? How can I be supported? And then sometimes I'll have a client come back after a year and go, right, need to redo this all again. It's all collapsed in a heap. So it is different to each client. We might have pregnancy that comes, and then there's some times in between. normally there's mums and then daughters will come in puberty, like help.
Yes. Yeah, so it's quite
Yeah.
individualized. Yes, so there's no one size fits all. So where can listeners find you? How can they? Is there a website that they can go check out?
Yeah, so revitalhealth.com.au. I also work with Home Hope, which is a non-for-profit. So I lecture, part of the faculty, and I talk every year at the symposium. So normally it's in America. This year we're in Vegas at the end of the year in December. So I'm talking there on sexual health optimization, which will be fun.
Yeah.
So the website's probably the best place to find me, and we've got various programs. I also do mentoring, a lecturer as well. So there is a huge component that we have in terms of the clinic here, that a lot of mentorees come in and we also do that. So there's also the mentoring component.
Wonderful. Do you only work with local clients or patients, or if there's someone across the globe, can they also come see you?
Yeah, I've got clients spanning from New York to Romania, London to Ireland, Scotland. We've got all over the place. So yes, telehealth is the gift of COVID, I think.
Yes. But regarding the testing, so do they just locally do the test and you interpret it, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got our places all over the world so America, there's labs everywhere that we can do this testing. Mauritius is probably the one that we find the most difficult at this
Okay.
stage.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, any last thoughts? Anything that maybe we didn't touch on, or maybe as a bit of a summary, any last thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think there's lots. I think there's so much that can be said around this topic, and we really just scratched the surface. There can be so many things that you can. I think it's just reaching out for help, and finding yourself. There's some really basic non-negotiables that you can do in your day. Get some sun, get a really good hydration, making sure that you've got joy in your life every day, and proper nourishment, and don't feel guilty for that. And then making sure you're getting grounding and your morning sun is just some of the very, very basics that we need and we forget about in this busy, busy world.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jodi. And thank you for sharing this valuable information with us. And I think it's so valuable to know that we should be chasing nutrients rather than calories, but also look at the bigger picture. And this could really make a world's difference in our health and our well-being. And looking at the quality of our food and incorporating these holistic approaches to have a full life and to live to our fullest. So thank you, Jodi. Thank you for taking this time to be our guest today. And all the best.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you have a passion for health and wellness and you would like to make a difference in the lives of others and discover a new rewarding career in health and well-being coaching, visit www.healthcoachesacademy.com to find out more.